And welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name's Ruben.
And I'm Kay.
And today we are reviewing a Netflix original movie called The White Tiger.
The epic journey of a poor Indian driver who must use his wit and cunning to break free from servitude to his rich masters and rise to the top of the heap.
Okay, so Netflix have a number of Indian originals from series to movies, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great. So I never quite know what I'm going to get when I go into one of these. I had heard a little bit about the book, and I know that's regarded quite well. So I thought the adaptation would be interesting to see what they do with this film. It is long. It's over 2 hours. Over 2 hours. What is that?
Just 2 hours.
2 hours long. But I also really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So there were parts where I was like, wow, this film is long. But I wasn't necessarily clock watching. I was like, it feels a bit long.
Oh, you see, I didn't feel that.
Okay. So
I was fine.
You were fine?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think the journey of this is really epic. So you go on a big character study, a big adventure, I guess. It's quite a dark adventure.
Yeah.
And it goes in places that I wasn't quite guessing either, which is quite nice. If you've seen the trailer, it gives some stuff away, but not everything, which is great, because that's what you want in the trailer, to leave you wanting more. Mm-hmm. Like, you watch the trailer and you'd be like, okay, that's going to be great. See the movie? They didn't show everything. That's very rare.
It's very rare. Normally they just show you the best bits.
I think for me, what really works about this film is the narration.
Yes.
And that doesn't always work in films. If you're using narration to dump a bunch of information on your viewer, or you don't quite know what to do in this moment, so you just spout a load of stuff, and now your viewer has to assimilate a bunch of information, that is when it doesn't work. When it's an actual, basically the narration is a character, then it works really well.
Yeah. I thought that the themes and the sort of issues that are dealt with in this film obviously are quite painful and quite, well, obviously really relevant, because this is still the situation for millions of people. Servitude is a big thing. And I think also for us, having grown up in South Africa, where having servants is actually quite common. I think you had maids.
We had maids, yeah.
Yeah, I had a maid and a gardener. And that was just, like middle class people employed servants. So there is this understanding that culturally there's the way that sort of servitude works in certain cultures. But it's really difficult, and I thought they tackled that really well, where they brought an American into the situation, and then it just all didn't work. Because this American was like, how can you treat him like this? How can, like not understanding the sort of culture behind it. And that was really good, because I think you needed that perspective. Otherwise, it's more of a culture study.
Yeah.
But for me, it was quite painful to watch, because obviously I don't like injustice. I don't like it when people are treated that way, and it really upsets me. And the only reason that I was able to sit through this film and not just say, I can't do this, and switch it off and walk away, is because from the very beginning that there's going to be an ending, that he's not going to stay in the situation that he's in. So you keep watching and you keep watching, and it's getting worse, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just too hard to watch.
You see where it's going, and you don't want it to go that way, but because there's two moments that they tell you at the beginning of the film. One is your character is going to end up like this, and one is something has happened to your character, and those two things are a driving force behind the entire plot of the film.
Yeah.
So when you get through the really dark stuff, you're like, it's okay.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
And there are a couple of moments of levity in the dialogue, which I really appreciated as well. I think it's definitely to do with culture. I have a few Indian friends. I've been close. I've travelled through. I know a little bit about the culture, and so I thought they got that right. So I don't think anybody's going to be offended and go, that's not the way it is. I think it was very accurate. But I can't say for sure, so if it's not, let us know in the comments. Yeah. It did feel correct, and especially coming off that adaptation of the novel or the book, I think they've done their best to keep to the novel, but also embellish it somewhat and also make it as creative as they can. And talking about the creative side of it, the cinematography in this is excellent.
Yeah.
It does seem to lend itself, I would say India seems to lend itself to a palette, an array of colours that just are so visual that when you show it, especially at night, it just looks so exciting. It screams adventure, which I really like. I've always loved the look of the night. I'm not necessarily want to be in those scary dark alleys at night with certain people, but it does lend itself to adventure on screen, which I think is part of what makes this film and films like it, especially those that are filmed in India, have a bit of adventure to it. So I think that works really well.
There's a colour palette for poverty and there's a colour palette for opulence, and I think they make the distinction really well.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah,
that's accurate, which is good. It's another character. Making your colours a character is very interesting to me. And then we kind of need to talk about the acting. The contrast which you talked about from the American Indian lady to the son who was schooled in America, to our main protagonist who obviously has no idea of the modern world. He's basically a slave. He's had that driven into him as part of your psyche. That is what you're going to be. That is your lot in life.
Yeah.
And seeing
if
those,
you're lucky,
and seeing those personalities clash and having the actors have to take those characteristics on board, I don't think anybody was a weak link here. I think everybody was excellent. You totally bought it, all of those characters. You bought what they were or who they were. There was no point that I stopped and think, oh yeah, that person's acting in that role and they're delivering those lines. It was just, wow, that's what's going on with you. I feel so sorry for you. You forget that you're watching a movie, and that is good acting.
That was brilliant. What I loved was the main protagonist, who is the servant. Watch his eyes, because that's probably the best bit of acting that I've ever seen, is the change that happens in his eyes over time. Like, there's a look that it's like behind a facade there's his face, and then there's something going on behind in his eyes, and it's so amazing to watch.
It is a great character study, seeing where your protagonist starts out at the beginning and then seeing where he ends at the end. Was very interesting. I do have to bring up a moral issue.
Right.
So this film throws up, this is what you can be if you work hard, if you change your destiny. There's a big theme of destinies here. But what you have to do in this film in order to achieve that destiny, it's like almost glorifying this one moment. And you're thinking, yeah, I totally get why you do that. But how do you justify that? Also, if you didn't do that, you would still be a slave, and living a horrible life, or even worse, or dead. And so your mind, as you're thinking about it, is like, yeah, I totally get it. But if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have ended up here. What the hell? It's a very interesting...
it is a moral dilemma.
Moral dilemma to throw up to your audience. And then just make you have to deal with that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that we watched it last night. And when I went to sleep, I was thinking about it before I fell asleep. And when I woke up this morning, I was still thinking about it.
You were like, what would I do?
No, I was just having a sort of flashbacks of colours and conversations and thinking about like what life must be like if that is actually your life. And I think that's just the mark of a really good movie, if it can sort of actually work its way in a little bit. It's not just that washed over me and now I'm on to the next thing. There
is a moment where it has a little dig at another film, which I thought was brilliant, and I don't want to spoil it for you. Just that was one of my favorite moments. Like, this is a reality film, and they're saying that's not, and it was great. All right, so I'm gonna give this a straight up A.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Chat to us in the comments below. Let us know what you thought about this film when you're seeing it. Are you excited to see it? What else have you seen from these creators and these actors? I don't know them very well. I do know the director has done some stuff that I wasn't expecting him to have done, which I thought was like, well, you've done this, okay. Which is great. But for the most part, I think it was just a great film. A story well told, and invest you in the characters. All right, thanks so much for watching this. But most of all, until next time, remember,
live long and Tuesday.